Go, go, go. Good evening and welcome to the script. I am your host, Isaac Paul, and this is the Unfiltered, the Unscripted, and the Unapologetically Real. Each week, the script dives headfirst into stories shaping our lives, from the headlines lighting up your feed to the love dramas unfolding in your DMs. Powered by real talk and raw perspective, this live experience blends culture, commentary, and community with the pulse on what matters now. Whether it's politics, relationships, or the internet's latest hot mess, we're breaking it all down with insight, humor, and just enough side eye. This isn't just a show, it's your front row seat to the conversation you didn't know you needed. Now, before we dive into tonight's topics, I want to take a moment to shout out our incredible partner, blackdoctor.org. Now, if you're not familiar with blackdoctor.org, they are the leading health and wellness resource for the Black community. Research reaching millions every month with culturally relevant content that empowers, educates, and uplifts. Their mission is simple: to make health and healing more accessible by speaking directly to the unique experiences of Black families. From chronic illnesses to mental health, nutrition to self-care, blackdoctor.org is about taking control of our well-being with information that we can trust and voices that look like ours. I'm proud to be a part of this platform and to bring you the script every week in collaboration with BDO, because in a world where everybody's talking, we're committed to making sure that you hear what actually matters. Now, tonight I am joined by someone who embodies vision, hustle, and heart. She's the powerhouse behind Love Corkscrew, the award-winning wine brand that's not only redefining the industry, but is also creating space for culture, community, and conversation. She's been featured everywhere, from Forbes to Wine Enthusiast. She's broken barriers as one of the few Black women leading the national wine brand, and she continues to inspire with her story of resilience and reinvention. But more than that, Krishan is family. We go way back. From art lounges in Chicago to building movements that bring people together, she's smart, she's fearless, and, she's a Libra. So trust me, she always has something to say. Please welcome to the script, my friend, the founder of Love Corkscrew, Krishan Lampley. Krishan, what is going on? How are you doing? What's popping?
I need to use that intro going forward, except for the Libra part. I need to use that intro. Everyone, just when I walk into a room, I'm gonna press play on a video. Right? What's up,
Right.
Z?
I'm gonna go ahead and send it to you. I'm gonna send it to you. You know what I'm saying? But just take out the Libra part.
Because
So
I do
what
always
is
got
going
something to
on,
say.
man? So listen, this is actually an earlier recording, right? So this is like a pre-record. That's why both of our light looks pretty good. You know what I'm saying? We got the daytime stuff going on. So if you guys are watching it live, this is recorded today. It just got recorded earlier in the day because, different time zones and, Krishan is a mover and a shaker. So I wanted to be able to snag her when I could, right? But, we got some topics, man, that, we go tap into. But before we do, I always like to just kind of begin with just kind of telling the people what you got going on. Like, is there anything special that we need to know about before we dive knee deep into this conversation?
Well, I am kind of excited. The next week, I'm headed to Napa for what they call Black Radio. It
Oh,
is
wow.
the Black Blue Note Black Radio Festival, and
Okay.
it is hosted by Robert Glasper. And
Oh, wow.
this is going to be the second year I've attended. It's gone on for a few years, but this is the second year that I've actually not just attended and been a part of it. So my wine is featured in this amazing event. And we are part of what they're calling the Black Vines Garden. So it's specifically Black-owned wines that are going to be featured in this amazing area within this festival that has thousands of people. It's like the Black jazz Lollapalooza-ish. It's pretty sexy. Just make it a little older. Stick
Okay.
it in a vineyard setting, resort, and I mean everybody from Hiatus Coyote to Stokely, Earth, Wind and Fire, Jasmine Sullivan. I mean,
I am jealous as shit right now. You did not tell me all of this was
DJ
what's popping.
Jazzy Jeff, Lupe Fiasco, I'm just naming just a few. Terrence Martin, who I've always wanted to see him in person.
Mm,
It goes on and on. It goes on and on. There's like tons. Last year was Jill
okay.
Scott. I mean, it's just amazing. So yeah, yeah. So this
So what's funny is I kind of ask for this because I want to talk shit and be like, oh, okay, so you just gonna stun on me, but I literally ask you what you got going on, and you're
you
like,
did.
what's since you asked?
That's on you, Playboy. You asked me, and I
Yo,
tell you that's what I'm gonna be in 7 days.
right. Okay, wait a minute. Okay, so Robert Glasper is who's putting this on?
Correct. Robert Glasper in conjunction with Blue Note. So this
Huh.
has been happening several years. I believe they used to host it at the Silverado Resort. I wasn't a part of those, but now they moved it to the Meritage in Napa. And yeah, it's a 3-day concert, 3 days from
And
noon to midnight
damn.
of
So
performances.
so what's fly about it is like, and it makes sense. Like, okay, so Robert Glasper is one of those individuals that he's very well known inside the industry,
Yes,
and very loved and respected by like, I would say like a core, faithful, loyal fan base. He
which
hasn't,
I
to
am one of
me
them.
at
I
least,
literally
and I
have it
might
all
be
on
wrong,
vinyl. Yeah.
uh, and I might be wrong in saying this. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like he hasn't really blown up in terms of like mainstream to where he's one of those names where, like how you say common names like Pharrell or Timbaland or somebody like that. He may not be known in all the households, but amongst industry people, he's very well known and very well respected because
Yes and
of not
no.
only
You don't
right,
remember what Chris Brown did? What happened with Chris Brown?
right,
Remember that?
yes,
He was like,
yes,
"Who is Robert Glasper?" And next,
right, because
he's
he won
uh,
artist over him or something. He
yes,
won some
yes,
category over him, and Chris was
yes,
like,
yes.
"Who is dude?"
Right. And the next, Robert is selling out of T-shirts saying, "Who is Robert Glasper?" It was brilliant.
Right,
It was
right.
brilliant.
So
Yeah.
and when it comes to that, like, sometimes I have to be cautious because there are certain people that, like, for me personally, and even us, because we're both pretty big music heads, especially when it comes to like that alternative hip hop and alternative R&B.
Yes.
So
Yes.
you and I can trade back and forth. Like I told you about the event here that I hosted last week. And I just casually said the names thinking I was gonna have to tell you, like, yeah, and you kind of know who it is in the moment I said it. And I said tall black guy. You said, "Oh my God, I love tall black guy." And I was like, okay,
In
see,
heavy rotation.
right, like you get it. And
Yeah.
for people that know tall black guy, it's like we obviously rock with him real hard, but I'll put it like this: he can do a tour and they can make money, but I don't think it was necessarily easy to just pull people out here in Phoenix because of the fact that it's like he's not a big name just yet. Like if
Right.
you even look
Right.
at his what is it? Spotify, and you see how many monthly listeners he has. It might be under 100K. You know what I'm saying? So it's one of those things where it's like he has an avid fan base, that really rocks with him. He's, probably got a couple of placements on some pretty big artists, or
That.
artists, like, yeah, like projects and stuff like that, but
Yes.
he may
Yes.
not have like really broken through like that just yet. So sometimes I have to make that distinction between somebody that I know and love and that's really big for me versus who's a universally known name, and when it comes
Right.
to Robert Glasper, I feel like he's somewhere in between. Like
I agree.
he's
But
you
he's
feel
very
me?
much, I say he's like the NPR for artists, right? Like all
Okay.
you
Yeah.
have to work with. If you work with Robert for a song, you're the cool. Like you can sing your ass off.
Hmm.
You are whatever the track is, it's going to be hot. You're never not going to like it. You may not think it's just like the best song ever, but you're never not going to like it because his artistic know-how on the keys is just
Yeah.
sick.
Yeah.
So he just scatting like Jill talking about you like call me on the telephone and she's just going
Mm-hmm.
on and on and on. Like you totally ad-libbed that whole thing. And it was
Mm-hmm.
angelic with Robert behind you. So he's just
Yeah.
yeah, he's the NPR, right? Like you've made it and you're cool and you're a true artist if he asked you to perform with him.
And what's
That's
funny
how I look at
is because, like, you say the name, and a lot of people might be like, "Oh, I've never heard of him," but if you get that man in the studio and start asking him to tell you stories, and he starts name dropping of artists that he's worked with, and you're like, oh shit. Because I mean, he'll casually, like, he's got a story that he tells about Lauryn Hill that's hilarious, man. Like, you know, he's he sometimes isn't the biggest fan of hers, because he's like, I think she's an incredible artist, but I think she kind of, you know, like there was some discrepancies in some past, you know, as it relates to a few projects and stuff that they were working on. But it was just fascinating to hear these stories, and then you start to realize, like, oh snap, so you was getting credits in the game even before I was aware of you. Because I want to say he's probably been on my radar for at least the last like maybe 10, 12 years, but he's got projects that even predate that, you know. So that's why I'm like, okay, he's very well known, but it's almost like the gentleman, I can't remember his name, and I'm totally about to jack it up. I think it's like Clarence something or another. He just he passed away recently within like the last 2 years, but he was like the godfather of the industry. They did a documentary of him on in Netflix, and like I didn't even know who this gentleman was until this documentary starts up, and the first person speaking is former President Barack Obama. Wow. And right there, I'm like, wait a minute, who is this? And the more that they go through this whole documentary, you start realizing, like, okay, not only is this dude huge and well known, but he was personally, like, you know, the cause of many of my favorite artists even getting a shot. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to think what his name is. Is Clarence?
I'm visualizing who you're talking about. I would have to literally look at, but
yeah, I'm gonna look it up, because it bothers me that I can't remember this gentleman's name. But like because he's so big, and like I said, he and I want to say his wife passed away recently also. And you know, it was a sad, tragic situation of what happened with his wife. But yeah,
random. Man, with a story very similar that I just saw the story on Parliament and George. Don't talk about
Clinton.
And about how he created Atomic Dog. I'd never seen that story, and that was crazy. Like, he was so high. I walked into the studio. They actually were pressing rewind on a tape, which sounded like the music behind Atomic Dog, which is insanity. And he's high and then talking about a dog. Like, it was just, it was unbelievable. And I'm like, that's how you created like one of the most iconic songs of all time. So it's crazy, some of these artists and where their minds are. And then the true artist and the true love of music and how they touch people that you think are the biggest celebrities. And they're like, no, I'm not that cool until I have such and such on the keys, or such. Like it's one of those things, or such and such is playing. I don't know if you saw the recent one with Bobby Brown and the guy from Boyz II Men. He was playing the real tall, thin guy from Boyz II Men. I can't think of his name right now, but he's playing the guitar acoustic, and he's playing it and singing with Bobby Brown.
Okay.
If you could pull that up sometime, maybe not this session, but it's unbelievable. And it's maybe like not even 40 seconds, right? And at the end of it, the guy from Boyz II Men says, "This is a dream come true." And Bobby is giving him kudos, saying, play that. And he's just going ham acoustic guitar. It was bananas. So anyway, just the respect of artists and who's out there. So yeah, it's going to be fun, because speaking of last year with Robert, a few of the artists just got on stage and he just started playing, and they just started singing randomly. It was just random.
Real quick, just because I got to give this brother, his flowers. His name was Clarence Avant. That was his name.
Yes.
Clarence Avant. And it's because I was like, it's going to bother me if I cannot remember this gentleman's name. May he rest in peace. But so is Love Corkscrew being carried at this event?
That's what's so exciting. So yeah, I'm not just attending this event. Love Corkscrew has a full activation. So we're setting up in the actual Black Vines wine garden. Love Corkscrew and the Lampley will be featured, sold. They buy bottles, they buy glasses, they're buying stuff. We expect to sell out. Last year we sold like 200-300 bottles. It was insane. So
Okay.
yeah, I'm really excited to be in Napa
Okay.
in a week. So yeah, if you ask what's going on now, mind and wait, let me make you feel a little more, a little worse. So last year, kid you not, I was in the back. It was after the wine garden had closed, and I'm heading towards the stage to see Jill Scott.
Okay.
Who is standing right there? Andre
Oh,
3000
oh,
and
stop it.
Jeezy. Andre 3000
Stop
and
it.
Jeezy. So I took a picture with Jeezy. I'll be honest, he wasn't that nice, right? So I'm like, whatever, let me just move on because I don't know your songs like that, right? So I'm like, I really
Mhm,
don't care. But Andre 3000, whole nother story.
mm,
So he's just, at first, he's just very cordial. And I walk up into him and I said, may I? I don't run up on folks at all. Never
mhm.
have. I've met several folks and I'm like, no, even though in my head I'm fanning out, I don't appear to be fanning out, right? So as soon as I got up to him, he wasn't looking me in the face. Now this has happened to me with celebrities before because I get it. They're just going to look straight. They're going to take the shot and they want to move on to the next person.
Right.
So I saw him looking straight and I turned to him and I said, I'm a winemaker. He turned to me, lit up, grabbed me, and had the hugest smile on his face. And
Mm.
that was so warm. It was like, okay, he became a person in that moment and he respected what I did in that moment. That was everything. So I will never forget that situation with Andre 3000. That was pretty dope.
Mm. Okay. Well, I wish you the best next week,
Thank you,
and
thank
I'm
you.
pretty certain that we will speak and just even kind of game plan, make certain that you're in the right state because that does sound like a amazing opportunity, and so like
Huge.
yeah,
And yes, we
I'll
will build
definitely
about it. And I know
right.
there's going to be people that watch this that are probably going. So come see me in the wine garden.
Right, right. So let's go ahead and just dive in because there were a couple of things that we wanted to touch on today. So this particular topic we're going to call splitting firstity. Okay, splitting firstity, and this is something that I thought I would really get a kick out of having this conversation with you specifically. So someone online said, "I'm not dating nobody co-parenting a pet with their ex." And listen, I had to stop and think about that, right? Because on one hand, it sounds petty, but then on the other hand, do you really want to be in a relationship where you're still splitting weekends with the dog like it's child support, right? So tonight we're asking the question, is pet co-parenting with your ex a sign of maturity, or is it just a sign that you ain't ready to let go? Okay. So, I'm a pretty big fan of Threads, and when I saw it, I was just like, okay, this is hilarious because I mean, he's right. I had to like it myself, right? So this was a story that I thought was hilarious. Somebody said, I remember one crazy time this girl ex broke into her house while I was there. The nigga started screaming to her, you got our son in the cage? And I was like, WTF? Is he what is he talking about? Of course, I got my ass up out of there because he was ready to die over that damn dog. I don't know why that makes me laugh because I'm just like, dude, first off, let's keep it a buck, okay? You didn't really care about that dog like that. You know what I'm saying? I think in that particular situation, I think that was the dude that was just looking for a reason to keep that connection with that woman. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm pretty certain that when they was together, he probably didn't even take care of that damn dog. Now all of a sudden they done broke up and this nigga Caesar Milan, you know what I'm saying? All of a
Like,
sudden,
look,
he
people
just
don't even
dog
act like that
girl,
over
like,
kids. Like, what are we doing right now?
right, right,
So
right. So how you feel about that? Like, I mean, what would be your reaction, or just even in your experience? And the reason I thought that this would be a fun thing to ask you about because you're really into dogs and you're
I
really
am,
into pets, right?
I
And
am.
so, like, I know that that's near and dear to your heart, but also that your husband is really into pets as well. Now,
Yes.
we're not talking about hypothetical situations, y'all not being together, but just think
Yeah.
about past relationships, like what would that look like, right? Especially if both you and your significant other were both pet people. Like, how would you even handle a situation like that?
So my initial thought is to say that it may be complicated if you got the pet together.
Okay.
All right. So yeah, we might have to go to small claims court on this situation, like to get this dog, right? If we went together to pick up this animal and we both fell in love with this dog, we might have a problem. We might have a problem. Now,
Hmm.
and so my answer to the latter would be, okay, so it was your dog, but I fell in love with your dog. It's gonna leave your dog. There's
Hmm.
nothing I can do about that. I'm gonna cry for a little bit. But there's no way I'm co-parenting with and now I don't want to say there's no way. I maybe in a divorce situation, maybe
Mm.
that's the thing, but in a relationship situation, I'm going to go with you still are connected with that person. You still want, that's just like, I'm going to be real raw with it, like leaving your clothes there, right? Like you still have a
Mm.
drawer there, but y'all broke up. Like that's
Right.
kind of with the
Right.
dog. Like stop it. Like if you
Okay.
let
So
go of
how
the
would you
person, you
now
let
how
go of
would you handle that though? Like, okay, so like let's say that you're on the other side. You met this guy, y'all are really, and this is hypothetical, right? This is
Mhm.
before marriage. You met this guy,
Yeah,
y'all are really hot and heavy, you feeling him, and he, just casually says, like, oh yeah, I mean, yeah, I got a pet, but I'm co-parenting right now with my ex and everything. Yeah, we both got the dog together and everything. Like, how would you, and you're feeling them, right? Like this is
right,
maybe a few weeks in, because I don't even know if this is first off, even as I'm throwing out this hypothetical, is this a first date type of conversation? You know what I'm saying? Like
right.
at what point
Just
do
so
you
you
even
know,
mention that you're doing something weird like this?
that has to be when you're in. You cannot say on the first date because you will not get a second. That is just
Mm.
absurd. I wish a man would say like that. Doesn't even make, like you what you co-parent with your ex-girlfriend and you co-parent with a mutt. I'm not doing this. Like right away, I'm like, okay, there's more to this. There's more to your crazy, and I'm not getting involved in this situation because I think yes, as a Libra, I might daydream about everything, right? So I see myself getting a physical altercation with this woman over the dog because she's coming to pick up the dog and the dog wasn't ready on time. What? But the dog didn't have its shoes. Like, what are we doing right now? Or the dog didn't get its payment. Like it's support. Like, what do we do? Like, no, I'm not going to get my butt whooped over a woman scorned with the sharing custody of a dog. This is not.
Right.
I'm not getting involved in. I'm not. I'm not. Oh, on Sundays, you guys have to do the exchange. Like, I'm not doing this. No,
Mm.
no,
So
no,
you're
no.
saying, that for you it is messy.
It's
That there's
extremely messy.
you're having a hard time buying into the belief that this is something that
Bull,
is just
bull,
purely
bull.
platonic, and these are two people that they split up because they realized that their relationship wasn't working, but they both had a avid love for this pet, and they both
Cut it
wanted access to it. To
cut it
you,
out.
you're like,
Let
nah,
it go.
that
Nah, let it
that's
go,
nothing.
Playboy. Let it go. So on Wednesdays and Fridays, I get Fifi from noon to 4. Like, no, we're not doing this. And I gotta watch the exchange in the car, which you guys meet in the park and exchange. Like this, no,
Right,
over a
right.
dog.
Okay.
The fact, and I hate to make light of it, but I'm serious. The fact that people don't even think that hardcore of a child,
Mm.
but there's people doing that over a dog. As much as I love dogs, I don't know if you know what is that commercial with the dog food of because the dog's food is in the refrigerator and they end up
Right. Yeah.
somebody dating. They're like, wait, that's dog food. What you have the food in the dog, and then they kick the
Right.
person out. I'm that person.
Yeah.
I'm the kick you out. Like literally, we warm up our dog's food every night for his
Mm.
birthday, which was this
Okay.
past August 13th. And happy birthday to you, by the way, as well, coming up.
Well, it's coming up. Yeah.
Yeah, I know it's coming up. But we might not be on for me to say happy birthday out loud to everybody. That he had steak and sweet potatoes. So my husband
Mm.
literally went to the store and bought Jupiter a steak, prepared it, didn't make me any, just the dog,
Mm.
got steak and sweet potatoes, cut it
Mm.
up, and I actually sang happy birthday to our dog and
Mm.
videotape. Last year, he had a birthday party with Tutu. We invited Tutu. They had lamb chops. Dead serious. But
I can't.
did a whole reel with music behind it. So I'm that
I can't.
person. He has a
Stop it.
Waldorf Astoria bear. in which we called Waldorf to see if is there any way we can get another bear. They're like, no, you have to stay here for your dog to get an additional bear. So I was thinking about actually doing one of those, what are they, those hotel nights that would stay tonight or whatever, so I can get Jupiter another bear. So yes, we're insane. But am I going to share custody with it? I will not. I will not. Nor will I date somebody who does.
Okay. So I want to show you this one post. Woman says, my ex and I co-parent our dogs. We exchange them in parking lots on Sunday evening, just like real parents. We both love our dogs, just not each other. Not too hard to be civil, right? So this is how they getting down, right? So, and so I thought that was rather interesting because
but how long does that last? We're talking about until the dog dies. Like we're talking about this is going to go on for years. That is, and I want to know if they have healthy relationships outside of their exchange. That's the part I need to
know. Now that's a good question. Now she followed up because someone had said something, and she said whatever people are into. She said we're divorced and friendly, but not friends. Now this is her giving more context.
Interesting.
She said, right, we don't text unless it's about the dogs. We don't chit chat when we meet up. Our respective lives aren't each other's business. We got the dogs together and had them together for 7 years before we split. So it was tough. It works for us, but we very clearly don't want to get back together. So someone else commented, they said, I do the same with my ex. And honestly, I see nothing wrong if it's in terms of you just described, which is how we are too. She said, yeah, whatever works for people. Like exes exist in the universe. Are we supposed to hate them and avoid them at all costs just because we used to date? I see him for a total of 90 seconds and we talk about who hurt their paw, who threw up, etc. So, me being silly, I went in and I was like, I don't know about that. I was like, this kind of sounds like one of those Hallmark movies where like the dogs are conspiring to get y'all back together. You know what I'm saying? Like this sounds like the conflict stage of a Hallmark movie where y'all are like finding y'all way back, but really the dogs is what kind of kept y'all together. And
years from now, in their 60s, they rekindle. Like, cut it out. As the dog's on its deathbed, they just hold each other's hand and they hold his paw. Like,
but wait a minute. Why when I said that, I was like, listen, I said something. I was like, yeah, all I'm saying is just that Hollywood says that this ain't over with yet, right? And so why when she responded to me, because I'm being playful, right? But why when she responded to me, she was like, well, I mean, only time will tell, but I'm just saying for right now, it's not. I'm like,
the answer would have been different. The answer would have been hell no. When pigs fly, no way am I ever like when it's done. So I don't know. I think that's half in and half out the door.
Yeah, and that's kind of how I saw it a little bit too. I was just like, that can get a little sticky sometimes. So yeah, you definitely got to be careful with that. Especially as it relates to, because I do understand having a pet and loving that pet immensely and just developing that kind of bond, and the splitting of that bond being something that it's causes a huge separation. So I can completely understand that.
Totally.
I think that when I think about it inside of the scope of a relationship, kind of to the point you said, okay, did we get the dog together? Were we honestly both sharing responsibilities? Does the dog have a favorite? This is also a question we need to ask ourselves, right? Because if the dog ain't really that crazy about you, but it loved the woman,
I've seen that on Judge Judy. The Judge Judy, I mean? she decided on because the couple were fighting to get with each other about the dog. And on Judge Judy, she had the dog come in. Oh, there's a fly in here. She had the dog come in, and whoever the dog ran to was who she let the dog go home with. So yes, that's a thing. That is a thing. Who does the dog love the most? Yes. Because
it's almost like, I mean, like, I don't know, just something about that feels weird. You know what I'm saying? And I get it. I think that and I'm trying to be delicate when I say this because I understand how special and significant pets are to people. But I think that just sometimes when people go like above and beyond in trying to really make it seem like this is the exact same thing as having a living child in your house. It's
Right.
like, no, it can be special, it can be meaningful, but sometimes I feel like, okay, and I don't know if this is like a 2025 thing because a lot of this feels like this is just some new shit in the last decade. I'd really be surprised to know if people were sharing pets like that in the 80s. Like, is this something that happened in the 80s and the 90s and the early 2000s?
If
Or is
so,
this
they
just
were
shit that we're
too embarrassed to
living
tell
with?
anybody that they did that. They were not having these type of discussions.
Right,
There was no
right.
threats to
This
have it.
sounds
You
like some
gonna call
social
somebody and
media
tell them
shit.
that? Like they know they're not
Right.
talking about this. But
Yeah.
hey, by the
This feels
way,
like social media. You know, social media gets you to doing weird stuff sometimes, or you see other people doing weird things, and you're just like, you know what? I'm gonna be weird too. Let's all be weird together, right? Like
yeah,
this kind of has that kind
let's
of vibe to it.
say
But
weird
okay,
things.
I was
Yeah,
I was curious to get your feedback, knowing that you are someone that loves your dogs. You know what I'm saying, and that
immensely,
you've been a great pet owner for
immensely,
decades. And I was just like, I wonder how you would handle this
and
because
still
I
not,
know me, and I'd be
still not.
like, and I'm pretty damn open minded, but I would be like. You know what I'm saying? Like it feels like it's one of those situations that just is an invitation for some future chaos, right?
Agreed.
And
Something's
so
gonna go
that
wrong.
is where, and I'm not even the person that says you can't be friends with your ex, right? But I remember I got into a conversation with Brittany on the script a couple of weeks ago, and I think that topic came up about being friends with exes and stuff like that. And I've always been someone that says you can be friends with exes, but I think that in an area that I've clearly evolved and probably developed is understanding what that friendship looks like, right? If it's the friendship where it's like, okay, she comes into town once every so often, we catch up, have drinks, and I tell her about what's going on with me. She tells me about what's going on with her. Boom. And then, she's back to her life. I'm back to my life. That's one thing. We don't have to be enemies, right? Like that'd be silly for you to be in Phoenix for an extended period of time and we not catch up and have dinner or drinks, right? But if it's like we hang out, a few times a month. Okay, now that's a little different, right? Like, because that is an accelerated type of friendship. You know what I'm saying? Where you
Very
say to
so.
yourself, okay,
Very
my best friends, I don't even hang out with that often,
right.
and just
Right.
at our age, we typically don't get that kind of access, a bandwidth to be able to hang out with even the people that we love, right? Like, I mean, you the ace boom right here. And shit, the last time I seen you was what, probably last year, I want to say,
Exactly.
when we did
When I was
the
there.
show.
Yeah.
So right.
Yeah.
So it's almost like, if you're hanging out with somebody like, multiple times a month, and this is an ex that you've been intimate with, it does kind of
Little
it
fishy. And
it
it might not be
raises
from you.
eyebrows that makes you
Right.
say,
And it might not be on your side, right? You don't want to
mm,
get that person thinking that they have a shot. Because I
right,
think so I do not remain friends with exes. Um, and maybe because mine always ended weird, meaning one person was into the other one more, like it was like,
hmm,
it was it went both ways. I can name ones that I was
right,
more into or ones that so I don't, based on, I would never want that person to get a perception of, what I'm, aiming to do and vice versa. So I tend to avoid. Now, I'm not going to like see somebody on the street and not say what's up. That's just insane.
hmm,
But I don't do it. So I think my point of saying that is, yes, I think it would get extremely uncomfortable based on you don't know what the other person's really thinking because you have history.
hmm,
You don't know. Now, it may not be something that somebody doesn't care about. I know plenty of people who are friends with their ex. I'm just saying that there's still, just like this dog thing, there's still a little something that could be there. And
right,
doesn't have to be romantic, right? It could just be something about that individual, just like friends attract friends, right? There's some reason why we like each other because and why we're friends because we have things in common and because we have something common, goals, whatever the case may be. So I just say I would tread lightly
right.
on the
Because
dog.
I feel like
I gotta
one of
kill
the
this
things
fly.
that's
It's
dangerous. One of the things that's dangerous with that situation is sometimes when you keep old appendages around, it can kind of prevent you from really being able to move forward. You know what I'm saying? So it's almost like if you had this relationship with this person and on some level you all have developed several attachments and several dependencies on one another. And so while you all may have moved on and eliminated you all's intimate relationship or your intimate bond, there may still be an emotional attachment that exists. And if, this co-parenting of this fur baby is putting you all into close access with one another, it makes me question, like, would you really be as available as you could to someone new? And then also bringing someone new in, how do you have that
right.
conversation with them? You know what I'm saying?
That,
Like, and is that a deal breaker? Like, is it almost like, okay, as hard as it is to find someone, period, at any age group, let
yeah,
alone as you progress, and now, let me throw something new into the mix. So, like,
by
not
the
only now do we
way,
have to be physically attracted, do we have to emotionally be in sync with one another? But I got this little thing that I got to explain to you that's kind of weird as shit that I'm going to need you to accept because it's kind of a deal breaker because this dog I've had for 10 years and me and my ex broke up 3 years ago, and we see one another every other week to
see,
discuss.
and then how do you have that conversation, right? That would be the part that I think people
Right,
would read a lot into. Is it like, okay, I'm going to take you for drinks because I got to tell you something? Is that one of
right,
those when you
right.
get home, we have to have a talk?
Yeah,
Okay,
that's what I
so
was saying.
then,
Is this a first date conversation?
like,
Like, this feels like a first date conversation. Like, I don't even know, like, because if you have this conversation too far down the line, then I almost feel like you just misled someone and you led them on. You know what I'm saying?
and
In
they're going to
the
be like, so how
in
many
the, in
times
the
did you
falling
see
in
her?
love with you, not knowing, oh, by the way, I got this appendage and it's attached to something that's living. You know what I'm saying? So,
And what else are you
all right, I
hiding
wish
from
you
me?
had told me that before
Fair.
month 3.
But I'm thinking like
You
date
know what I mean?
3 though. Like I'm not. It doesn't have to be like I'm not talking like a year into the
Oh
relationship.
no,
Hey,
oh
by
no,
the way,
and that's what I'm
on
saying. Okay,
Sunday,
maybe not day 1, but probably by day 3.
yeah, date 3. I
Okay,
think date
all right,
3.
all right,
Date 3.
all right. Well, check it. Since we on the topic of dating, this next segment we're gonna call first date or first debate. Okay, so picture this: you're sitting across from somebody on a first date, food just came, drinks on the table, and then they hit you with, "So who'd you vote for?" Is that fair question to ask, or is it the fastest way to kill the vibe before the appetizer's even done? Tonight, we're talking about politics on first dates. Is it smart to ask early or is it better to keep it cute until later? Right. So I'm curious to get your perspective on that. How do you feel about dating and just kind of like asking that question, right? Like, do you think that it's wise for a person to know that up front? Or do you think that that's kind of a vibe killer?
I'm going to say you're going to know off of
Mm,
the flow of the
okay.
conversation where that person stands when it comes to politics.
Mm,
And if we're talking about now really more so now than anything, right? You only need a few keywords to figure out who they voted for on that side, whose side they're on.
mm,
So I think I would rather talk about more worldviews than
mhm.
go dive into politics because I definitely come from that old school where my parents would tell me never bring up politics, never bring up sports or religion
Mm, mhm.
on people that you just met because that could cause not only major arguments, disputes, but
Right.
actually fights that could turn violent because people believe so much in those three things.
Mhm.
Um, People physically fight at football games. Like, what are we talking about here, right? So, and politics, okay, we don't have to say what's going on with that. And I mean, like in religion, right? People believe what they believe. So those are the three things I was always taught to steer clear of. So I'm going to say I'm going to ask some key questions
Mm,
that would lean or ask their opinion on something that happened recently that I'll be
mhm.
able to pick up what side I think they're on. I usually
Okay.
people always tell them themselves.
Mm. That's
They always do.
interesting
They always do. So my
because
answer, that's a long way of me saying absolutely not. Will I say, who did you vote for? No, I would not.
mm, okay.
No.
Because this is actually what sparked this particular topic. was someone just wanted to know, like, is asking how someone voted an appropriate first date question. Now, what I found to be pretty intriguing was that the majority of the people inside of that particular thread was like, oh, you ask well before the first date. You shouldn't even be on the first date if this is not something that you've already identified. And I found that to be so fascinating,
That's
right?
interesting.
But
Yeah.
I'm not gonna front. I get it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
I asked the question, and it's funny because my exact comment is almost identical to what it is that you just said, which is kind of funny. Where I was and no one responded because I think by the time I found that particular thread, it had already kind of gone through the cycles or whatever. So I kind of found it on the back end. But that was something that I was curious about, like, was okay, I kind of feel like you can kind of tell, you can kind of get a general vibe off of like when you're talking to a Trump supporter, you know what I'm saying? Not even just a Republican, specifically a Trump supporter, like, because they don't just they didn't just vote for him because of a political decision. Like, they believe in all of that stuff. Like, they don't believe in vaccines. They don't believe in, like, it's an identity now. It's not just well, this is how I think a person should, invest, or this is how I think, fiscally we should be spending our resources. Like, nah, we've gone into this new space now where who you voted for in many cases says a whole lot more about you and just what you believe in and how you live life. You know what I'm saying? Absolutely. And even just your temperament on a level, you know what I mean? And so I kind of felt like, from an intuitive perspective, if you're having general conversations, you really should not have to dig too deep before you figure out what side of the fence someone is on. However, that is something that I've also learned, is that everybody doesn't always have that antenna. They don't always have that tuning fork, right? I mean, hell, there's a lot of women that be dating gay men for several years and didn't know it. And then I find out, I'm like, how did you not know? Okay. How did you not know that this nigga, like, you know what I mean? Like, no shade, but he's literally screaming it. He probably thought you knew. Everybody else knew. How did you not know? You know what I mean? So it's like, in one of those type of situations.
Yeah, what everybody else tells you after it's over. But why did you tell me? Right.
I mean, did the man purse and the switching not give you any indication, my nigga? Did none of that? Just completely over your head, huh? You just said, here's a man that's in touch with his emotions, and that was enough for you. Okay. Gotcha. But the point I'm making is, because of that, you start to realize that, like, different people look for different things, and certain people, certain people can be tapped in to different wavelengths for a whole myriad of different reasons, and I don't think that it's someone being mindfully obtuse, but I do think that there are times where, especially depending upon what's going on in your world, you may have so much stuff that you're working on that I don't have time to dissect this person, because I'm looking at charts and facts and figures all day. So we go out and I accept this person at face value. Who they tell me they are is who I believe them to be. And if I enjoy spending time with them, then that's where it ends. And I know that because I'm highly intuitive. So if I'm highly intuitive, I have to accept that this is a spectrum, and that if I'm highly intuitive, there's somebody that is absolutely not intuitive at all. And they need it to be spelled out for them. And so for those people that need it to be spelled out, they may have to. And what's crazy about this is I've actually seen quite a few like reels or just content where it might be like a dating show or something like that. And this is white and black people, but mainly white people, where they will flat out ask the bachelor or whatever, so who did you vote for? And right there, first off, the moment that the person pauses, you already know who that is. Because if you voted for Kamala, you more than likely say it with your chest. I'm gonna say it. But if you say it with Trump and it's a woman that's asking you that, now all of a sudden you kind of hesitate, because you just like, all right, like, do I tell the truth? But the moment you hesitate, they already know. We know who you voted for. And women have gotten up and been like, yeah, no, I'm not interested. And in this case, dudes be salty as hell. They be salty as hell when they get rejected because of their voting preferences. And I'm just like,
I get it. So I guess I'm going to digress and say, would that be first date conversation? Still no. But yes, let's say I was single and I was on a dating app, I might put it, or that might be the texts are back and forth or whatever prior to
Mm-hmm.
going out. But is it going to be something that I'm going to be in front of that person? I end up liking that person's energy, and I'm in my head, I'm like, I'm gonna ask him if he voted for Kamala, or like I'm
Mm-hmm.
no. I'm not doing that, because I think that creates a whole thing, right? And it's okay. So, and I'll flip it. Let's say the person did vote for this. We voted for the same person, right? Then that could turn into a big discussion about politics, even though I do like talking about politics when
Mm-hmm.
the setting is right. But do I want to talk about that on the first date? Doubt it. Doubt it.
Mm-hmm.
I rather get to know more about you and the energy and your likes and dislikes than we're going to sit up and talk about policy. That's just not me. So again, I still would not. If anything, yes, maybe before we even laid eyes on each other in person, but that's definitely not first.
Mm-hmm.
Because I can see just
And
like,
you know,
get off the table and leaving. You could be really disappointed very quickly. Yeah, no.
would you go turn the table?
And walk out.
Trump, this is some bullshit. Check, please.
And get out. Like, it's just
Getting dramatic
I'm
all of a
not doing it
sudden,
because
right?
I cannot hold my composure in my face. So I'm going to look at you like you're insane. And then at
You
this
know what's
point, I'm
fascinating though
tuning you out.
about this conversation is it's like, it's interesting because I'm thinking now about how I worded the question that I put in that particular thread, because similar to how you was just talking about the vibe a moment ago, that's how I felt. You know, first off, I never was big on online dating anyway.
Right.
Now, it wasn't that there was anything wrong with online dating. It was just that because of how social I was and, you know, how much I would interact with people, I always had a plethora of options that I thought was, you know, dope surrounding me, that for me to go online, that would have just been too much for me to be able to handle, right? Because now
Right.
I'm already texting and in meeting with people in real life, and now I'm gonna start having to email them. Like, nah,
Right.
man, that would
Right.
have been
Texting, emails,
entirely too much. I
messaging,
would have
checking
capsized.
messages. Right.
I would have capsized, right? Like, especially the way I like to talk. So no, that's been danger zone for me. But I feel like this is the only reason that people can have these kinds of you know, moments where they discover a person's voting preferences is because they are meeting people online, right? So when, you know, when you
Right.
meet someone online, it really does come down to the X's and the O's, and it's almost like a job application, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm looking at how good they look on paper, and
Yeah.
it's got very little to do with the vibe or the vibration that, you know, you get from someone, that energy and the whole nine, you know. And so I feel like that's one of the things that's unfortunately lost in 2025 inside of this space, is that back in the day, the vibe would dictate everything. You know what I'm saying? Like, to the point where a person might not be your type. You know, you normally like them chocolate, but here come this light skinned, you know, dude with all this swag that says something that you thought was funny, and now all of a sudden they physically start to look a little different. You know what I'm saying to
Yep.
you? But
Yep.
when you are online, it's like, man, when I think about it now, man, so many of us now unintentionally are being it's like our identities are based off of our voting preferences, you know. And that's the
Absolutely.
wildest thing when you think about it, because like even us
Absolutely.
as liberals, we are very different underneath this tent. Now maybe conservatives, right, because they march a more narrow line, so maybe you can kind of pinpoint them, and Brad, you know, acts like Jake,
Right.
because, you know, it sometimes conservatives can kind of operate in a hive mind type of mentality, where it's like we get our marching orders, we don't deviate outside of these narrow confines. And so, you know, you meet one, they pretty much like the other six that's on, you know, the conveyor belt. But
Right.
then you know, under this liberal thing, just because I vote, to your point, just because I voted for Kamala don't necessarily mean we gonna vibe. You know what I'm saying?
Does
Because
not.
inside of this, and now you see, getting into some political shit, the left is all over the place because now it's leftist and liberal and progressive. I'm like, all right, y'all
It's a lot
confusing the
going
hell
on.
out of me,
It's
okay?
a lot going. There's
This ain't even us against them. Now
de-
I don't even know the definitions no more. I'm just
I
like,
don't
all right,
either. The whole woke thing, you know, like everything's so like contrived and weird. And so, yeah, like and I was going to touch on that. Okay. So let's say you guys you do ask and they say that they voted for who you did. All of a sudden you're like,
mm-hmm.
whew, okay. So, I mean, but there's like so much more. There's so much
Right.
more. So I don't see that as something that's necessary in that moment. And I'll backtrack again, right? Something that maybe you should have on your profile. Well, also with the power of social media now and dating, I would assume if people are doing it right, they are looking through their social media. More than likely, you'll be able to tell there as well. So if you do your
Right.
research, go through their Instagram, their TikTok, all that stuff, go back to around those November dates, like go back and see what they were saying, doing. Is it just I vote, but it's also I vote and make America great again? Like what was the hashtag mag? But there's going to be signs. So I think if you just do your due diligence prior, it's not a conversation that needs to be had.
Okay. All right. That's interesting. All right. So listen, I'll take that. All right. So listen, I appreciate the fact that we are peeling through these topics because this next one, this hit me at what age does the dream of having a rap career end? Okay, so that's what we're talking about right now. At what age does the dream of having a rap career end? So I want to start with this right here. So someone says, at what age does the dream of having a rap career end? 35, still spending money on studio sessions. You don't have no other interest. So we talking about right now, man, rap dreams and rent money. Okay.
Oh God.
What I'm trying to know, Krishan, is at what age is a person just supposed to say, you know what, man, this ain't for me. I'm gonna go ahead and hang this one up. How you feel about that?
22, and it should be a wrap. Like 22 and just stop. You start pivoting, right? Like maybe I could produce, like maybe I can.
Okay.
Okay.
So you're not saying they got to give up their full dream. You saying being on the stage and rapping,
just
that
transition.
ain't your ministry.
Just cut it out. Like if at 21 it has not happened and nobody's opening act and your friends aren't even playing your tracks for you or your hits and you try to get these CDs sold and nobody's buying, let it go. If they're watching you on now it would be what is it? Twitch or whatever, or whatever it is now, but YouTube, and you have like 10 people that like the video, like just stop at that point. I think it's a wrap. However, pun intended, I do think that does not negate your talent if there is any. And that if you do have talent, that would more than likely mean you have a good ear. So you may be able to discover talent and or manage talent for them to learn from your mistakes. So I am definitely not one to say let go of your dreams, but I am one to say pivot it to make sense in where you are in your life in the moment.
Okay. I like that. Now, here's what was fascinating is that when I saw that particular thread, I just knew that I was going to go in. There was going to be a ton of people like roast them. When I tell you, they was getting on old girl that made that comment. The algorithm does some really, really interesting things sometimes, right? Like in the sense of it will send the content not to the people that agree with it, but with the people that disagree with it.
Yep.
And I think she thought that she was going to do something with that one, and the algorithm was like, "Oh no!" Like, because people were getting on her, like, and I don't know if they just sent it to a bunch of starving artists or what, but there was a lot of people in this particular thread, women and men, that were like really on board with a person, because I think they saw it from two different angles. On one level, they saw it as a person having a hobby, right? And a person like just really, like what's wrong with a person still pursuing something that they really, are interested in. Other people pointed out to the fact that we only do this with hip hop. They're like, you got men that'll be well in their 40s or 50s starting a
Fair.
little garage band in their spare time, and nobody's saying they can play at the local pub and nobody cares. You know what I'm saying? But then when it's rap, it's something about our art form, because this came up with us and we
Yeah.
now know it's 50 years old, right? So like we
Yep.
keep acting like rap is like this young man's thing, as if Jay-Z ain't what, mid-50s now, and he's still one of the coldest rappers in the game as far
It's
as
not
I'm
the
concerned.
longevity though. It's the start. It's the getting noticed. So I don't get.
So you said if you ain't on by a certain point, niggas,
Right.
you said it's a deadline.
I'm talking about like if absolutely not one track has even like pushed the needle just slightly, it's time to hang it up. Nobody likes either your voice or the music or the combination of both, or this is just not where you're supposed to be. I will never say stop rapping. I will never say stop producing us, but just pivot it to something bigger and greater that's maybe meant for you. I'm sorry, Timbaland, like all these old, amazing, seasoned producers who are making these productions for these young bucks now, like become that. Because at this point you're seasoned, you have maturity, you know how. Meaning, if you did not make it, more than likely you have some stories and some ideas to tell somebody how to, so you can then guide them to do the right thing and make the right moves. That's just my 2 cents.
Okay. No, listen, you know, I get it. Now, let me think for myself. How do I feel about at what point you should get it? You know, it's first off, this is a conversation that I have with the homies often, and not pursuing rap, but specifically anytime, you know, my buddy Omar, anytime someone from our age group comes out with a new album, you think that they personally did something to this man. Oh, hold on. What's going on with my, oh, sorry about that. What is happening? Sorry about that. Hold on one second. I'm having some technical difficulties. Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Because hold on. Let me see what happened to my to my visual. But okay, well, I'm gonna keep talking while I work out my visual. But no, so it tickles me anytime that, you know, this conversation comes up with my buddy Omar, because, you know, you let this man tell it, and it's almost like he believes that you should not be able to make music. You know what I'm saying? Like past a
That's what
certain
he's like,
age. You know,
stop, period. Like, don't.
it tickles me, right? So like I think I find myself sometimes like kind of hoping that like an older person in the game will be able to like find their way. You know what I'm saying? Like that's kind of what I'm hoping for. Like, I don't know if you heard the Clips album.
Of course I have. It's amazing. I watched them on NPR. And that was amazing. They still sound amazing. They still look amazing. They are vampires for sure. But they've been on.
Right.
So to me, that still does not. Like they've been fantastic. You worked with Pharrell. Like you've been fantastic. They can every rap they do to me sounds like they're freestyling. They're just talking and it sounds fantastic. That's
That's how I feel. And so, you know, it tickles me, like I said, because of the fact that like on a personal level, I've just been waiting to see who is going to be the next older artist that finds his way back into like superstardom. You know what I'm saying? Because I personally feel like it's possible. I think it's possible. You know what I'm saying? I think it might not necessarily be probable because of just the way that the game operates now. But I do think that it's very possible for, you know, someone to be able to do that, you know. So
well, yeah, I mean, look at, who was it? Was it Morgan Freeman that didn't become very famous till late?
Yes.
You know, there's actors, you know, like that. So I'm not saying it's impossible. I just would like the pivot to happen. I would like the conversations to be happening. And this is with everything. I just use the rap scenario to go with any and everything. For us that do have dreams, some of us do not, which in my later years I had to realize, right? Not everybody is holding on to something that they just dream that will happen and come true. Some people just like working to buy things, and that's it, right? And I've heard people tell me that, right? So and it, for me being a creative, it was like fascinating. Like, wait, are you serious? You never had a dream to do something? Like, they're like, nope, and I'm good. So I feel that's with anything. If it's a business owner, if it is acting, if it is sports, and there has to be a point where you just say to yourself, okay, I'm going to continue pursuing it because there's something here, but what at this point makes sense at my age and level, or my know-how, or the people that surrounding me that could make this dream bigger and better, or realizing that dream is something bigger than you thought it was.
I completely agree. And you know what? I apologize at the fact that you are just sitting here looking at my little
Yes, my little godchild.
logo guy. Yeah, I mean, man, I'm so disappointed that all of a sudden that I'm having haywire issues and stuff. You think that this was retrograde? Because this next topic is actually something that so what's going to be fun about this? And again, once I get my camera stuff worked out, you'll see my picture again. But this next topic is something that is actually your segment. And can you go ahead and, to the best of your ability, walk us through what's happening with Uncle Nearest right now? So this is something that I definitely wanted to have you on to speak about, because of the fact that this is inside of the spirits industry, and I felt like you can give us maybe some added insight that isn't just readily available when you hear it, right? Because all we knew was that this woman was doing an incredible job. You know what I'm saying? She had the fastest growing Black-owned spirit company, of all time. And now all of a sudden, it just feels like chaos. And I'm hearing a lot of different words and terminologies thrown around, and I'm not 100% familiar with it. So can you break that down? Exactly what's happening with this?
Sure. So allegedly, so I will utilize allegedly. I am not
Okay.
a lawyer, nor am I involved at whatsoever within the case, but I have read the court documents. So allegedly, they owe $108 million to the bank. They also have a number of 100 plus investors that have invested in the company, and they are not equity holders within the company. So there is a lot of money out there, allegedly, that has not been paid, and that it needs to be paid pretty quickly. In the meantime, the judge has agreed to appoint a receivership. Receivership meaning somebody else takes over the finances, comes in. And my layman terms of saying is like, come in like the Men in Black, right? Covered with their suitcases, and see what's really going on in the inside of the company and the financial side. On the Uncle Nearest side, they are saying that allegedly the CFO was the one who cooked the books, if you will, to say that they had more property in barrels, $21 million to be exact, more than they actually truly had. So probably a lot will come out in the next few weeks once the receivership is complete. I think in the next couple of days, they will be appointing it when both sides have to agree on who will be appointed the receiver, and things will happen from there. In the meantime, on the Uncle Nearest side, they are saying buy off the shelf, clear the shelves as much as possible. And then on the judge side, they're saying, we want the Weavers to remain the marketing play, because they know how strong they are in the marketing side of the company. So that being said, go ham. Keep it moving till we figure out what's going on. So that is the gist of it. There are definitely some side stories happening with additional lawsuits that are brewing. So it's supposedly, allegedly, that's not it. There's more to the story. So I'll say this. This is in general, I'll make a statement that this is a very tough time for the wine and spirits industry as a whole. And there's many sides of it, some that people know, some people that people don't know. But in the gist of it, I would say the biggest piece is people aren't drinking as much, whether it be financial, whether it be health wise, whether it be the age of the Xers, and so getting older and realizing they shouldn't drink as much. The industry as a whole is really going down right now. Will it ever go away? No. This is a cycle, but it is tanking a little bit, and whiskey and bourbon are not doing very well. There are a few companies that are going under in that sector, outside of what's happening with allegedly what's happening with Uncle Nearest. So this is a thing. And myself being in the wine space, all my friends, some of them way larger than my company, are down. So none of us are doing that great. So I think there's a lot that's going to come out. There's a lot to be said. And there's a lot of thoughts that are going on in people's minds. I see a lot of people doing major think pieces, but I think we do that with every controversy, is we have to give our opinion without seeing facts. I don't understand that. I don't understand making comments based off of simply a title on a post of a non-credible source. If you have questions about it, I am the person to believe, well, let me actually look at the court documents, which I did. So I don't understand the whole thing, as far as what people are saying that don't know a lot about the industry. Even today, now I'm one to never get into it with anybody on social media. I don't respond nor comment on things, but it just hit me too hard, that I just had to say a little something. And this was in, and this relates to the topic, but it was in a comment to Target, still tanking, and people really banning behind Costco, minorities especially. So I had to make the statement to someone that says, Costco does not support minority businesses. So somebody, and that's all I said, Costco does not support minority businesses. So somebody responded and went in on me that how dare I say something like that, and I don't know what I'm talking about. Then they named 3 Black companies that are in Costco and said that pretty much like I don't know anything of anything I'm saying. So I'm like, do I respond? Do I not respond? So I had to say something. So the gist of what I said was, so the companies that you just named, you named 3. 2 of them I know personally. And let me break it down to you. Support. They do not support because they are wholesalers. They cut their costs extremely low, meaning that the supplier's cost is cut and their price is cut very low. So that equates to the supplier does not make that much money in Costco per item. Now, of course, the larger brands that have bulks and pallets of stuff in there, yeah, they're going to make money eventually. But at the end of the day, a lot of other retailers don't like Costco because they undercut everybody, right? With these low costs. So thanks. But I said, I know this industry as the vice president of the Association of African American Vendors, kind of know what I'm talking about, and own a brand for 14 years. So thanks, but I do know the company, and I do know support. Now, what irked me about that was when the person named 3 brands that were in Costco. I never said that they didn't have Black brands in Costco. My word was support. Completely 2 different things. There can be retailers that support you and carry you, and there can be retailers that just carry you. 2 totally different things. And
Right.
So where I'm going with this is, as an insider within this type of industry, CPG, and then on top of that, wine and spirits and compliance, and on top of that, a wholesaler, I know the game. So that's why there's so much more moving parts to our industry, to the
Mm-hmm.
case, to all of this, that people
Mm,
let it play out. Spend your money how you want. That's on you. Do you.
mm,
However, please do not become TikTok lawyers and Instagram like professionals that know nothing about the wine and spirit industry but to drink it. Just let things play out. Yes, support in however you want. I will never tell anybody how to spend their money, what to say, not to say. But I do wish that people would just read,
mm.
read, and to listen to comprehend. And you will find out that possibly some of the things you said on social media will not age well. Pun
So
intended.
like,
That was a good ending. Yeah.
do you feel that because this was like a fascinating story that for me kind of came out of nowhere, right? And it to be very honest, I still feel like it's kind of flying under the radar a little bit, and I don't know if that's a good thing, probably, for Uncle Nearest. But when we consider, it's not a common thing for a black person to have $100 million company. You know what I'm saying? Or a company that's valued probably even more than that, right? Like if that's how much they were getting loaned. Um, and so she was considered, you know, a, a shining star, a shooting star. And so to hear these things, I know that it creates, especially within our community, a lot of different types of emotions, right? Like
Yes.
on one level, it's like, oh damn, they always picking on us. And then on another level, there's some people that like they love you when you're the underdog and they want to kind of help you to get to a particular space. But then the moment that you actually, achieve some notoriety and you're kind of on top of the game and you seem like you're winning, now all of a sudden people really kind of want to see you fall a little bit, right? And they may be misreading some of the tea leaves a little bit, right? Like and making assumptions, as you just pointed out, as to what's really going on. Like I don't really know much about what it is that's happening, but because I'm just not accustomed to seeing like black people be successful inside of this space, and I feel some kind of way about that, like then all of a sudden they just start kind of challenging it and kind of hating almost, So I'm kind of
Agree.
curious as it relates to like, how do you think is the overall like public's perception, and do you think that some of that hateration kind of plays into this space as to how people are perceiving what she's currently experiencing?
Oh, it's a battle, right? It is one side versus the other. People have such
Mm,
strong opinions on both sides, that it's fascinating. And again, it's fascinating with people that just read a headline. So the emotion that is behind a downfall, so I'll go on the one side for the people supporting now. Some saying, and I see a lot of this is, I don't drink, but I'm going to buy these bottles, right? That's what they're saying. So, got it. So, why weren't you doing that before with all of our brands? So, it took the downfall of
oh,
something.
listen. Oh, you already know that. Oh, look, every black comedy from like I'm gonna say 2000 to maybe 2010 was that the company was about to fail or the church was about to close, and then they had to have a car wash, because the
Same.
moment that you realized that they was going out of business, then all of a sudden the community strings together
Right. Now we're going to work together.
and helps them cobble together some stuff so that they can make it to the next fiscal year. Because
I'm
please believe
sorry,
that church
that
gonna close next year. Like I
is asinine. So that the whole thought of that irks me.
uh
That
that it takes
why
tragedy in order to get people kind of
yes,
tapped in. Mm.
yes, now we're all tapped in. Now we're gonna fight the good fight. But we couldn't all fight the good fight for everyone from the very beginning. But people are arguing with me about Costco.
Mm.
What is happening right now? So you're
Mhm.
going to fight me over that company
But
on
see, you know
so
why they fighting you over Costco though, and that's what you just kind of pointed out, right? Which is that Costco for many people became this bastion of
correct.
anti-fascism because of the fact that Target bent the
Because
knee.
of
Because
Target.
Target was what we was all rocking with, and then when they removed their DEI policies, everybody was like, "Oh, okay, Costco's still on board with it," and then everybody rushed over there. And you were one of the first people that like really got me to see it in a more three-dimensional space. Not necessarily saying don't boycott Target, but
Right.
I honestly believe that there was a more strategic way that we could have gone about doing that, where it was like, okay, yeah, boycott them for everything else. Kind of like we were talking about when you and I did the session Wine and Love last week. And we were just talking about like what it really looks like when you're supporting Black business and how
Yes.
we
Yes.
need a blueprint. We need an
Yes.
active blueprint on
Yes.
what it
A
looks like
correction.
to support someone. Because if you think supporting someone is, oh yeah, so because Target removed DEI, a um a set of initiatives that pretty much put Black people as number 6 on the list, right? Because as
Mhm.
we always know, DEI was benefiting white women, it was
Yes.
benefiting the disabled, it was
Yes.
benefiting Asians, it was
Yes.
benefiting veterans. Like
Yep.
I think there was one more before it got to us. So
Mhm.
because we didn't like optically what that looked like, we decided to boycott Target, but we're ignoring that one of the things that Target still did have was a lot of Black brands on their shelves. And for many of those Black brands, this was the only major retailer that you can get access to them through, right? Like if they were
Several.
doing their stuff on Amazon, or like you said, through Costco. And even when it comes to Amazon, like just from an insider track of what I know, like, yeah, Amazon can be lucrative, but they really cutting into your profit margin, especially every time that they
See,
want to have like one of those Prime days and stuff like
yes.
that. Like in
Yes.
order to get
That
that
comes out
Prime
of
day, you
you,
got
the
to
supplier.
give significant discounts that pretty
Yes.
much, like, sometimes people lose money during Prime Day. Like there are
Correct.
companies that will lose
Correct.
money
Red. Red.
during Prime Day. So
Yes.
only the big brands are typically really able to fully take advantage of that type of stuff.
Dude,
And
that
this is
is
the kind of
Costco.
knowledge that we don't know.
That is Costco. So
Right.
that's the piece, right, that we miss. And I can't emphasize how I cannot tell
Mm.
anybody how to spend their money, but I have to emphasize what we the suppliers are really going through that other people don't know, and they're so adamant on their beliefs that they have no
Right.
idea what's really happening with the business owner. So again, it's different from carrying a brand. There's a difference in
Mm.
supporting a brand and what the retailers do. Two different things. Amazon carries a lot of brand, but during Amazon Prime does not support a lot of minority brands because we are in the red at that point. So if I'm packing a candle, I'm losing $2.08 every time I pack a candle. So what are we talking about here? There's carrying, there's supporting. So I'm working my ass off to get this 1 pound candle out, and I'm losing $2.08. So, and I better get out quickly. It better get out quickly because Amazon folks want their package right away.
Oh
So I
man,
have to
listen.
hurry up and lose money. So that's the piece that people miss on the other end. And that's all I ask is that every now and then just listen to what we, the suppliers, go through because we know way more than you think. We can see way more than you think on the other side. We see everybody's numbers. We know a lot more than you all think being on this side of the business. And that's all I ask.
So
Just every now and then
check
listen to us.
check this out, because I thought that this was an interesting perspective. I saw this on Threads, and someone said WeWork raised almost $20 billion in 10 years and went bankrupt. The founder was buying private jets and funding his personal lifestyle with company money, eventually forced to resign. SoftBank lost $13 billion because of WeWork. WeWork's founder, Adam Newman, got another $350 million for a new company before it even launched, and just raised another $100 million this year. This happens all the time to white founders, failing into more money. Yet our own are ridiculing Black founders. I thought that was
Agreed.
kind of interesting, right?
Agreed. I can
You
name
know,
about 100,000 more of those scenarios. I know
mm,
some personally, especially in the tech side, that they can do this raise, Series A, B, Series dang Z, raise like $100 million. Whatever the
mm.
app is doesn't jump off. They bankrupt, close off.
Ain't sold one product yet.
One product
Ain't sold one product.
and get way more money
Yeah,
once again. That is like a whole nother conversation because
yeah,
there's a lot of moving parts to that conversation. Does that
yeah.
necessarily have anything to do with paying your bank loans? I don't know about that.
You like I'm gonna keep it. You said if I'm gonna keep it all the way funky, though, right? You said I. You was like, I'm gonna let you finish. I'm gonna let you finish. However, okay, a bank loan is a bank loan. You know what I'm saying? And I mean, it's just,
So
and you know what? We as Black people do have a tendency to do that sometimes. You know, because I saw a couple of the comments just to kind of go through a few of them. You know, I saw so Jamil Hill said we don't have the same safety net, and we definitely don't get the same grace, regardless of what some people may think of Fawn. The only reason most of us even know about Uncle Nearest story is because of her. I think she deserves the benefit of the doubt and room to make mistakes. And that's true. $100 million is a lot of a mistake, but I mean, you know, I do agree with that. And the reality of it is I think that it comes down to like relationships, and sometimes people in positions of power and influence, you never really know how a situation may play out. And what I mean by that is, like, let's just say that there were some things about the whole way that this transpired that weren't necessarily on the up and up, that she may not have been directly the reason for, but we do know that if that was her COO that was kind of cooking the books, that he was under your supervision, right? And so on some level, you are held accountable. You can't just wash the hands
unfortunately, we
like,
are.
man, it was the janitor that did it. It's like,
Right.
no, you're like, it was your company, right? Like,
Right.
so you get that, right? However, because of the fact that she has done something significant, right? And that they have shelled out all of this money, for all we know, and this is the thing that I think I get a little curious about sometimes, right? Because to your point, right? Like if something, if you weren't paying back the bank loan, or if there was some inconsistencies and you provided them with the access to be able to catch you up, then it's like, yeah, they did catch you slipping, right? But on the next end, sometimes you say to yourself, it does make you wonder if they're seeing something that they're just not making us aware of, right? Like, which is that this may be actually a potential $1 billion organization, and they're looking for a way to get it away from her. You see what I'm
Of
saying?
course, that's
Like
the
in the
other
sense
side,
of,
right? Yeah.
they've got the resources already. They already know the people to put into play to really take it to the next level.
They've been
You know what I'm saying?
skyrocketing in
And this
sales.
was just the entryway of what they were looking for. And it's like, now I can go ahead and
Grab
snag
it
this.
up.
And thank you for this brand that you've built.
Right.
This
Appreciate you. And we're
loyal
gonna take
following.
it.
This is great hooch. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
congratulations
Could
on
be.
that. But we'll take it
Allegedly,
from here.
the company evaluates at 1.1 billion. So that
Mm,
could be it. I am just saying, no matter what your opinion is on it, there is no need for opinions right now until things work out in court and or you've
right.
read the court documents. That's all I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying, because a
Yep.
lot of things, again, based off of just one person putting a picture up with a title, people are all going in with 500 opinions, but you didn't read not one thing to
Right.
make this whole dissertation of what went there. This happened. Like, stop. Just read. Just read and chill. Let things play
Yeah.
out.
No, I think
Buy
we all have to
away.
do it.
Buy
Yeah.
away. but let things play out
Yeah,
before you
yeah,
write your think pieces.
I agree. All right, Krishan, I'm gonna need your help because I saw this chart recently. And I don't know what I'm looking at. So I was wondering if
Mhm.
you could break this down for me. The entrepreneurial operating system. I feel
Yes.
like it's something deep that is involved with this, but I'm gonna need you to assist me with breaking down what exactly am I looking at right here?
Sure. So now I am not an EOS expert. However, I had the privilege of being in a two-course program powered by We Ignite for We Bank, which is the Women's Business Enterprise Center, National Center. So the WBE, which is the Women Business Enterprise Certification. I was invited as one of the many business owners that were invited to learn EOS for 2 days. So it was grueling, grueling. We sat amongst amazing women from some that their companies do earn $49,000 a year to one of the companies literally earned $50 million a
Mm,
year, all woman owned. And we sat here with this EOS system. So the instructor who was lovely, of course, I'm absorbing as much as I can, but it's pretty much how to run your company with set employees, making sure
mhm.
everyone's accountable for everything they do. And this is all makes sense because obviously, if the ship ain't operating correctly and people aren't playing their roles, you can't move the ship forward, right? So it was fascinating. But now, what I found even more fascinating is that the instructor made the comment that she actually puts this chart on her refrigerator and she uses this chart for her personal life.
Mm.
So I found that fascinating. Now she just touched on it. She's married. I believe she has a couple of bonus children. You know, they were I think they were previously married before, and she says literally she uses that in her life. So I thought, well, you know what? Let me take this chart. I'm going to study it more for my business because I think it's very necessary as I grow. But also, I wanted to evaluate this with you when it comes to personal life. So just to touch on a few of the items on there and see how that would relate to having a more successful personal life and relationships. So I assume we would replace your business with your life, right? Your
Mhm.
relationships and how we see this process working to have a better life. So she was breaking it down like each section right now. We can start with you have to start with a vision, right?
Okay.
So is that the vision of where you see your life, where you are at this moment? What is it? Then having the, some of the stuff is almost self-explanatory, right? In your life, there needs to be the right people, and they need to be playing the right position. Like, I mean, it's like literally like do 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 do. And I thought about it like for real. Like when I'm on the plane tomorrow, I'm literally going to sit with that chart and write out different things within that chart based on my life.
Mm.
To know, okay, you know what? At 51 years old, am I exactly where I want to be? Are the places and part of this pie chart that says is certain things missing that I need to put together to make everything make sense so I can get to the point I would like to. So that was it. It was just a very cool chart that I just haven't dissected yet that I really want to. But I want you to take a look at it to, kind of get your take on it.
Hmm. I mean, and first off, in looking at something like this is a very uh, precise way of how to assess, I think your life, so they've got it broken down into essentially six quadrants. You got vision, data, process, traction, issues, and people. Right. So under vision, she says 8 questions shared by all, data, scorecard, measurables, process documented, followed by all, traction, rocks, meeting posts, issues lists, and people, right people in right seats. So, I do know of a lot of times where, you'll have individuals and they will, um, take, like I said, a very strategic approach to how they manage their relationships. And I do think that that is good for circumstances when you know that there's a goal that you're attempting to reach, right? I mean, especially inside of a marriage, because I mean, as much as your marriage can be based off of love and feelings and things of that nature, it is a partnership, right? And so, there are times where even me and Casey, we're starting to get a little bit better with it because both of us can kind of be creatives, in the sense of kind of build the plane as it's taking off. But there are times where you do have to kind of sit and have like strategizing sessions. We've got a little blackboard over here or whiteboard, and we're starting to get a little bit better with just actually earmarking certain things that we want to accomplish, even if it's just providing the space or the time so that we can structure around it. Because I think one of those things happens is that it's so easy, not only in business, but in relationships, to just get caught on autopilot, right? To just like things are going good right now. And, we just get caught in the space of just managing obstacles or managing catastrophes. It's like when there is no catastrophe, then we're relaxing. And then we're relaxing until there's another catastrophe. And then we got to like hop in the mode and try to, be our best selves. And the reality of it is that if we did take a more detailed approach, a more systematic approach, that we can actually avert a lot of these potential issues that, 9 times out of 10, if we're being honest, we probably saw it coming. And if you didn't see it coming, you probably could have seen it coming. You know what I'm saying? So even in looking at this, I can tell how like, that's where the data comes in. It's like, okay, so we got the vision, but then, all right, now it comes down to the data, because if you say, okay, I want to be a millionaire. All right, well, then we need to know like what it takes to actually be a millionaire. You can't just say that because, some niggas is just all vision, right? So it's start with the vision, and that's where we stop. And then, you rapping until you post 35 because that was it. You didn't crunch the numbers and saw how many rappers actually become millionaires. You were just like, no, look, I'm gonna get on, and once I get on, baby, you ain't gonna have to worry about working no more. And then it's like, all right, nigga, but these bills got to get paid. So we need some data, right? We need to know some specifics. Now, after you get the data, then okay, now it goes into the process. And I think that the process becomes so important, right? Because like even in looking at it now, like I actually can, it makes more sense the more you are looking at it, because I do think that in many cases it does start with the vision. So when you were sitting in there, is that where they started? Did they start at 12?
You are going the correct way. Yes.
Okay, so yeah, they started with that. So after you get the details, now you got to figure out like the how, what's going to be the process. And I think that the process becomes so important, especially nowadays, like not even just with, like I said, relationships, but then also with business, because we live in a time of instant gratification where you will literally post something, and if you don't start seeing immediate traction, you feel like you failed, and you almost can't really focus on the results too much up front, because sometimes it takes time for those results to develop. Right. So if we're going to go ahead and go back to the relationship, like, I think that, sometimes a woman may desire, a husband or vice versa. And they feel like, all right, well, I'm on these dating apps and I'm not seeing success. Just because you swipe right a ton of different times doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get that instantaneous result. But now you got to get into the process. Right. And the process means that you got to be prepared to learn from what is perceived as a failure, right? It's really not a failure if you're looking at it from the right lens. It's like you're learning from it. So, okay, I've gone out with 2 assholes, all right, well, yes, we're going to put the onus on them, but let's now go back to the data. Let's look at your, what data were you using to select these individuals? You know what I'm saying? Like, because maybe there's something there, maybe it's something in your process. Maybe you are zigging when you should have zagged, you know what I'm saying? Like, and so when you think about the process of not just courtship, but then also the process, which is understanding that it's going to take time, right? And the patience that sometimes is needed to allow something to develop, because I've actually had this lesson, and it's wild that it's something that you can know that this is a part of the system, but you still have to remind yourself because of the fact that it's like when you're in the middle of it, you want to see results. And the moment that you see what you perceive as a negative result, it makes you want to change course, right? It sometimes makes you want to switch up your process, but it's like, no, trust the process, right? Keep working the process. Are you seeing improvement? Are you moving forward? You might not be making a whole lot of money, but maybe first month, you were running in the red. Second month, okay, I've gained ground. Third month, we're at break even, or a quarter, however long the cycle is, what I'm saying? But you have to really get a clear understanding of what your process is. They also talked about documentation, right? I think that becomes important because if you're not documenting your results, then oftentimes you're probably exacerbating what it is that you're feeling, right? So a lot of times, like I'll give you an example on a personal level. Now that I am starting to focus more on the personal brand, even outside of the Tequila Tales, I'm focusing on Isaac Paul. I've tried to be a little bit more intentional with not just posting clips of like Tequila Tales live shows and things of this nature. I'm like, okay, I have to actually start posting like clips from the script, from Wine and Love, right? Well, you might post it and it feels like the reel might be flopping, right? Or I'm looking at my contemporaries and I'm seeing the success that they're receiving. And I'm like, all right, I'm hitting just as hard. Why does only got 200 views? Why does it got under 1,000 views, right? You think something is going wrong. Well, when I look at the documentation, I'm like, Ike, first off, you just started doing this shit a couple of weeks
Literally.
ago. Secondly, if you look at it, nigga, you only made like 10 posts since you've been doing this. So like, let's be clear, okay? Like you got people that post 5-6 times a day. So calm down. You know what I'm saying? Like documentation can help you just take a deep breath and realize like, okay, you know what? I was being erratic, right? Like if you go on 2 bad dates and you're not really paying attention to it, you all of a sudden you like the dating pool got piss in it. Damn, you went on 2 dates. Right. Okay, in like 6 months. Just because you swipe 50 times right, like that, the ratios look unrealistic to you, but like in terms of the scope of how things always was, man, like you're searching for a needle in the haystack, right? Exactly. And you only need to win once in many cases, right? So it's like, let's have some patience. You know what I'm saying? Just because every dude that you go out with is not Prince Charming, that's probably a good thing, right? Because if you had too many Prince Charmings, then that probably means that you weren't being as discriminating enough, right? So it's going to take some time to navigate this terrain, to even get good at the process, right? Because you might be a shitty dater. Let's be clear.
Right. It might be you. Right.
Dating. And a lot of people are. A lot of women think that just showing up is enough. And it's like, are you good with the conversation? Are you engaging him? Are you just mad because he's not leading you down all the pathways of what you want to go? Like, are you asking about his day? You know what I'm saying? Like this
has just talking about you the whole time. Right. Like what is right.
Right.
What do you do?
So that's important. Now, traction, I think that is where you start to get some response, right? So that's where the tires hit the pavement and you're trying to get traction. And so that's why they talked about, I'm assuming that the rocks is probably just like obstacles, right?
Correct. They even literally gave us one of those stress rocks. So it looks like a rock. Then you're squeezing it. So I'm just like the whole time I'm just squeezing it. Right? So yes, those are the obstacles.
Right. And so that's what that is, right? Is that you will get traction like after being on the platforms, kind of learning the platforms, figuring out what works. All right. Now I'm seeing that this thing works. And I think that even inside of the creative space, right? Every content creator hits that space where you were trying a bunch of different things, you were throwing a bunch of spaghetti against the wall and eventually something sticks. Bingo. And the moment that it sticks, okay, now you're getting traction, right? And from that point forward, you now got a choice. Do you hone in and do you actually, continue to build, or are you just going to keep throwing spaghetti against the wall? Because some people do that. They don't sometimes if you're not accurately looking at the results, if you're not accurately reading the results, you may not recognize when you're getting traction. See, and traction is different from a win. And I think sometimes traction becomes important because if you can't identify the traction, then you're always probably starting back with a new vision. You know what I'm saying? I can see a lot of people getting stuck between vision and data and probably process, right? Because if you don't know what it is that you're reading, then you might not recognize that you're actually getting better. And I remember me and Casey were talking about this, where I was like, there are times where I have to become my own biggest cheerleader, because in the here and now, I don't have the thousands and the millions of adoring fans that's letting you know, oh, you just killed it, right? Sometimes you need to be looking at the small things and then not only taking advantage of it, but appreciating when you are getting good feedback from someone, right? Like, who cares if you only got 10 likes on this and 2 comments? If them 2 comments was something good, all right, that's traction, right? Something that you did resonated, you know what I'm saying? And from that point forward, you can build off of that, you know what I'm saying? Because sometimes that's where it starts. And I think that we all have to humble ourselves and get away from what I believe is this new kind of warped mindset that social media has created within us, you know, where it's changed the way that we think, and it changes the way that we communicate, you know, to whereas we don't see the value in the minutia. Because if it hasn't gone viral, if it's not big, then we think it doesn't have value. And I remember I saw a person made a post. They was like, sometimes you get mad when you see something that had 100 views. They was like, do you know how many people 100 is? If you threw an event and 100 people was in that room watching whatever it was that you just did, that's a lot of people. You know what I mean? And it's like, I think we've gotten so trained that, oh, it's got to be 50,000. It's got to be 500,000. If it don't cross 1 million, it don't mean nothing. And it's like, you do know with 100, you could still get 10 sales if it's the right 100 people. You know what I'm saying? Like that's a pretty big group of individuals to have access to at that moment. So we got to get out of this space of like looking at what we're not and instead focusing on what we are. Now, going to the next one, you know, issues. That's where you got to address some issues, right? Because, okay, you're getting traction, but if it's not a complete success, you might have to address some things. Issues are always going to surface, and it's just a matter of like not only how you're addressing them, but if you have a system set up to address them. So if we're talking about the dating process, I think issues is a very big one, to be very honest. I like the fact that you wanted to relate this to relationships, right? Because as it relates to issues, I think that what I just said a moment ago when I was talking about how I feel like social media is corrupting us, right? One of the areas that I think social media has put us in is that we are constantly using the voice of outrage. Outrage is the language of social media. If it does not get you roused up, then it doesn't resonate. And because outrage is oftentimes directly tied to engagement, we communicate that way. I can't begin explaining to you how many random posts I've just been on communicating casually where someone might respond and they move to strike. And in most cases, I know that's either you misinterpreting what it is that I said. You know, half the time people don't even read and comprehend properly. So it wasn't even just that I did not clearly state it. It was that you might not even have the intellectual capacity to understand or to grasp what it was that I was saying. But instead of just acknowledging that you don't get it, instead you grabbed enough to respond in a vitriolic way. I literally had a guy tell me, fuck you, the other day when we were having a casual conversation about trans rights, right? Because I think that because I wasn't 100% in agreement with everything he said, still an ally, but I wasn't in 100% agreement with him. In his mind, he went into this binary space, right? Into this polar space where it's like you're either 100% with me or you're
Or
my
you're not.
complete enemy. And in that moment, he turned on a dime just because I was attempting to explain to him something that is commonplace. He didn't
Mhm.
understand it. So I'm like, okay, if this is the way that common people are communicating via social media, that's letting me know that we now have entered the space of unrealistic expectations. We have unrealistic expectations that I think is creating issues because we don't acknowledge and take ownership of the fact that we are all very different people in this world. So if you are going to be able to get into a relationship with someone, I'm not saying to accept nonsense and to accept bullshit and to accept, individuals crossing those lines that you feel are kind of core to you. No, everybody should understand what their red lines are and what the red flags are, and just know, no, these are areas that I don't negotiate on. But I think that we have a lot of non-negotiables nowadays that really are negotiable, if we're being honest. So going back to what we were talking about earlier, back when we used to make our dating decisions and our relationship decisions based off of the vibe and based off of chemistry, a lot of times we could surpass this. But because of the fact that so many of our interactions are virtual now, it means that we start hitting these blocks, right? We start hitting these obstacles and we start having these issues. So the first thing that we have to be able to do is, one, determine, is this really an issue, right?
Yeah.
Is it really an issue, or am I just on one? But two, if it is an issue, is this something that we can work together to move past? Is this one of those type of issues where we can resolve the conflict through effective communication? Or is this one of those issues where it's just letting us know that we aren't in alignment and that this is where we part ways, right? Because all issues cannot be solved. That is the reality of it,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
So sometimes you have to then determine how important is this issue. Him leaving the toilet seat up, is that just a mild annoyance, or is that something that in your mind you say to yourself, I just can't? And I'm gonna be honest,
Deal
for
breaker.
some
Right.
people, they will make something
Yeah.
like that incredibly important, when
Yeah.
really it's like, it really wasn't that big. You know what I mean? Now, I'm not here to tell you what's big and what's not
Right.
big,
Right. Right.
because each individual is something different. But again, I think that because of the way that we live in this on-demand society that allows you to dictate exactly what you can watch, when you want to watch it, how you want to watch it. We got a news feed that's curated to our precise likes. It knows exactly what we like. We think that our relationships are supposed to follow suit, and it's not. You're going to have some disagreements. You're going to have some areas of misalignment. You have to determine how important that is. Is this something that's worth fighting for? Is this something that's worth ignoring? Is this something that you can move past? Or is this really a fork in the road where you have to, just go on either side? And the last one right there was the people, right? Right people, right seats. And I think that really does just come down. So that's interesting because,
Yeah.
looking at that one as the last one, it can, it's interesting because you could either take that one first, in which case it shifts everything else, or that could be the ultimate ending of it, right? Is that at the end of the day, you ended up finding the right person, right? Like
In
once
the
you
right seats. Right.
navigated all of these other areas, your reward is being it is having the right person in the right place, right? Like once you have had the vision of the kind of person that you want,
Mhm.
you assess the data of how you're going to go about finding, say, a person, like what options are available for you to meet, say, a person. You got to actually get your ass at the house and put forth effort. Then you got to find what your process is going to be, the willingness to actually go through the process, right? Like you have to be willing to put in the work. You got to be willing to kiss a couple of frogs, you know what I'm saying? And to fail a few times and not just be like, you know what, the hell with it, and not try anymore. The traction, after you go through that, you're going to start to see, you're going to have some good dates. Eventually you're going to, meet some cool people, right? You're going to line, you're going to start to get the wind beneath your wings, as they say. You're gonna get your swagger back, and then once you are going out with a couple of people that you kind of like, on occasion, you are going to run into some issues, right? Conflict resolution. And I'm someone that always says it's not about whether or not you have the issue, it's whether or not you can get past it, right? And it's been this way with all of my best friends, present company included.
Mm-hmm.
You and I have had a moment that is hilarious. We still remember that. You know what I'm saying? But it's not that we have that moment, because the people that you love the most are also the people that can hurt you the most, right?
Absolutely.
And that's something you need to understand, that if I don't give a shit about you, then when you piss me off, I'm probably going to be very flippant, right? When you piss me off, I'm probably going to be like, whatever, I really didn't care. But if I do care about you, then sometimes those slight, things, those slight offenses could cut very deeply. Even if it wasn't a big thing, it just cut more deeply because I care more about you and you meant more. Conflict resolution becomes paramount, if you're going to be able to develop relationships that have some type of longevity and some type of value over a period of time. And if you have the ability to do all of that, then you're blessed with the right people. And me being the Warren Buffett of relationships, man, that is my value right there, right? The people. Like, as much as we can care about all of this other stuff, man, I kid you not, I would not want all of the wealth in the world to be alone. Because that's Elon Musk. You know what I mean? Like, that's that type of individual. That's the Donald Trump, right? Where you got all of this money and you seem tormented. It's like, how you got all that money and the only people that want to hang around you are people that you are paying. You know what I'm saying? Because you just don't have that other stuff, right? Like, I love people being the source of my wealth, because, it's what makes the world go round. And, I do think that there is someone out here for all of us, if you are willing to put in the work. And I think that that's what that graph kind of, symbolizes is a person putting in the work. So even though I just did a hack job of taking that woman's,
I would not have wanted anybody else to break down that chart and relating it to relationships. I just knew it would all make sense to you, and I don't think anybody else could have ever done that.
Hey, Krishan, and to be clear, y'all, that's another person's copywritten work. So, if what I said felt good, and give her all the credit, I just interpreted what she put together. That was not my system. That was my system. I'll be putting this shit out here. I'll be hearing from attorneys like, so we saw that you were using the EOS, and good job. We like that. Thank you. However,
when we post this, just make sure to put, this is not my in no form or fashion is this my system. This is just my interpretation. No, I do not have rights to EOS, but it was brilliant, Isaac. No one else could have done it. So thank you for it.
Well,
and that's my section.
I appreciate you so much, man. You know what you and I were going to do? Oh, so for anybody that's watching, me and Krishan, so before it was Tequila Tales, before it was Love Corkscrew, there was Wine and Love. So we've joined forces these past several months, and we've been putting some things together, and we go live oftentimes a few times a week, so we probably need to go ahead and actually create a Wine and Love page, you know what I'm saying? But if you're not watching this, you need to be following Love Corkscrew, you need to be following the Tequila Tales, and just like stay tapped in, right? Because this is something that me and Krishan do all the time, and so we were going to hop on and record yesterday, but as you see, she's got a heavy schedule, and I was busy too, so I was like, well, hell, if we gonna do it today, we might as well go ahead and do it with the script. You know what I'm saying? So she was like, bet. So, I appreciate you, Krishan. It's always an absolute pleasure having you on board. And look, and just in time, because the sun's starting to set, so my light is going. We had some technical difficulties. I appreciate you powering through while my cameras went down. That's how we professionals out here. You know what I'm saying? Absolutely. I was over here putting wires together, putting new batteries in and shit. Like, really? Today?
And I was being journalist. It was perfect. So it all worked out.
But no, I appreciate this. Any final thoughts you want to share before I wrap?
Yeah, just for everybody to actually just read. How about that? I would just listen. That's it. Because there's so many things. There's so many topics out there. I just want everyone just to do your due diligence. Don't be so quick to bite people, and just sometimes just sit and absorb information. You always don't have to have an answer.
Mm,
Sometimes you can just absorb some information, sit back and watch what happens next. So
mm,
just know when to read, when to research, and when to just be quiet. That's
mm.
my last thought.
Well, listen, I appreciate that. Krishan, I'm gonna pull you backstage, but just stay connected
Yep.
while the stuff uploads. But as always, man, it's a pleasure. Oh man, so yeah, you guys. Hope you guys enjoyed this particular episode. Man, let me think. Final thoughts. Is the little guy gonna come out? Oh, okay. Well, final thoughts. Where do I want to go? Because there was so much that I wanted to speak about tonight. I'll say this much. So I don't know if you guys have been paying attention to Gavin Newsom's press room. Okay, and there is a brilliant Latina woman by the name of Camille Zapata. Camille Zapata, she is the person that has been running this man's social media. And to say that she has not been absolutely killing it, I am so completely impressed. I am encouraged. I am entertained. I absolutely love this woman, and I don't know much about her. I think I just appreciate everything about what's happening right now, which is that they're putting up a fight, right? That they are holding the line. And there's a lot of interesting things that's been happening, right? So for those of you all that aren't very familiar with the story, there's some stuff that's happening in Texas right now. And I mean, we're talking just a clusterfuck of a political situation that's occurring in Texas right now, where they are attempting to redraw the maps so that they can eliminate 5 Democratic seats from their House and add 5 Republican seats. Now, redrawing the maps is a common thing, but it typically happens once a decade. Well, we have a commander in chief that does not believe in rules, that believes that whatever it is that he wants, he should be able to just snap his hands and it should happen immediately. And so he reached out to Governor Abbott and was like, yo, I need you to make that happen. They pretty much have been having special sessions in an attempt to vote on these redrawing of these maps. Many people feel like it's illegal. I mean, it is within the realm of legality. He does have the power to do it, but what it is completely unethical, right? And if it were Democrats that was doing it, you'd already have people storming the Capitol in Texas. It is what it is, right? But right now, with the way that this energy is, the right is pretty much giving the middle finger to the Constitution, giving the middle finger to every commonality that we've experienced in the last several decades. And it's all about power, and it's all about a grab. Up until recent weeks, we've only had a few fighters, right? And it's been unfortunate because for many of us, we've almost felt like the Democratic Party has been neutered, with the exception of like a Jasmine Crockett or an AOC. That I'm gonna just pretty much say them. I mean, not just them. There's been a couple of them, but what you really start to see is just a lot of them as a collective. They really aren't fighting the way that many of us would like for them to fight. And we understand that we have a Republican-controlled House, Senate, Supreme Court, and the executive branch. So while we understand that there isn't much that you can do, the one thing that you do have access to is your voice, right? Is your voice, and taking your message to the people and getting the kind of grassroots support that can actually create movements, right? Stuff like this is so incredibly important. But when it looks like the Democrats were laying on their backs and exposing their bellies just a few months into this administration, it was mortifying, because it's like, okay, if we got 4 years of this and this man is running roughshod in the first couple of months, oh, we won't have any rights left. Like, this will literally be like Hunger Games by the time this shit is said and done, right? And it just gets so frustrating when it feels like no one, with the exception of a few women, holding that line and fighting, right? So many of the Texas Democrats, man, they started leading the charge. And I ain't gonna lie, man, Texas, they've been gritty. They've been gritty. I've been liking a lot of what I've been seeing out of them for like the past several weeks. You know, many of them got up and left the state. They left the state completely because of a situation called a quorum, where if they did not have enough people to have this vote, they could not approve this measure, you know. And so they literally fleed the entire state, and it has just been chaotic because you got Governor Abbott talking about he's sending them people knocking on doors. He got the FBI roaming the streets. I don't even know how legal any of this shit is, right? But because they've got power all the way up to the executive branch, they kind of moving like my girl in Real Housewives. Who gonna check me, boo? That's how they moving. Who gonna check me, right? Well, they bounce out, you know, they've been very vocal, the whole nine, but Governor Newsom saw this as an opportunity to say, oh, okay, well, if y'all gonna redraw maps to get 5 seats, us as the 4th largest economy in the world and a rather large population, oh, we have several seats in the House of Representatives. Oh, we'll gerrymander the hell out of this map. And we'll see to it that we not only get those 5 seats back, we're going to get more seats back, right? So while it's not something that is ideal, while it's not something that he wants to have happen, you have to do that to ensure that there is some sense of balance. Because without that, then what ends up happening is we go into the midterms, and once again, they'll control the House of Representatives. And if you know anything about our legal system, that's where all the laws and all the bills are initiated. It starts with the House, right? So it's like, if you don't have that, if you can't pass it through the House, or if Republicans can pass any kind of nonsensical bill or law through the House, well, you already got the Senate, and you know the president's going to sign off. There's no checks and balances. You see what I'm saying? So you got to fight fire with fire. So even though this isn't something that's ideal, it's something that is prudent for right here, right now. His press office has taken control of the official voice of Gavin Newsom. And when I tell you, so on the last show last week, I read the first 4 because it was the beginning of it. Last Tuesday is when it started, okay? And the messages were hilarious then. I thought he was just going to hit him with a couple of jabs and bounce out. Oh, no. Oh, no. They have had their foot on the gas for the last week. And when I tell you, it is giving me life. Every time I see those all cap messages, see, before I used to cringe because you knew that was a Trump tweet. And I don't follow Trump. I've never liked Trump, you know what I mean, on any social media platform. But you can't run from him because he's the president of the United States. So no matter what hellbrain thing he decides to put out there, it becomes news. It doesn't matter how ridiculous it is. It's news because of the validity of that office. So you could not run from it. And every time I would see that all caps, broken English, it would just infuriate me. But now that Camille Zapata, through the voice of Gavin Newsom, is at the helm, oh, chef's kiss, y'all. Chef's kiss. I don't even want to say go to Twitter because, you know, it's still a shit show over there, but go to Threads and just type in his name. Somebody has taken screenshots so that you can see the exchange. Oh, man, the way he's calling these people out. He called out one conservative congressperson that I believe was gay. And, you know, Camille, through the voice of Gavin Newsom, called him someone who I can't remember because of this picture. It just looked crazy. And so Tammy Lauren, who, for those of you that don't know, was like one of the former White House press correspondents, something like that or whatever. But she's just like a conservative voice now, just a blowhard, very annoying. She comes in and then all of a sudden tries to take the different voice of basically like saying, oh my God, I can't believe that you would do this and would call out a Republican that's also, basically trying to be politically correct. And all of a sudden she's socially conscious. The response was, Tommy, you sound woke. Oh my God. Oh, you talk about just brilliance with the clapbacks. The clapbacks, because they're not just being mean, they're showing we actually do this shit better than y'all do. And I cannot begin to explain to you all how much it just fills my spirit to just know that someone is waging a fight and that this fight appears to be working, right? And some people want to call it childish. Some people want to say that they think that it's beneath the office. I think what he is doing is holding up a mirror to the Republican Party, and he's saying what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And I dare you all to say something about it, because it's almost nearly impossible for you all to reprimand him, but then you all have been permitting it for Trump for the last 12 years. Like literally, what are we talking about, y'all? What are we talking about? And so because, and the thing about Republicans is they're comfortable being hypocrites, right? Because they're still hopping on Fox News and they're still talking shit and they're still, they got a ton of things to say about this, right? Like they are still very much agitated and trying to talk about it. But the reality of it is that they don't have any legs to stand on. And it is fascinating to watch. So within the last couple of days, you haven't really seen Trump with his any tweet that he's made. It's sensibly worded. Like it's almost like he stole the secret weapon from Trump. I cannot begin to tell you how brilliant of a maneuver that this was for so many reasons, right? For one, we all know Trump is a narcissist. You can't call a narcissist a bad guy. You can't call him an enemy. You can't call him a fascist. None of those things matter. What you do and what works apparently very effectively is ridicule, is mocking. It's making fun of them, right? Because they wanted to be the bad guy. They wanted to be the enemy. They want to be the villain. But when we start to hold the mirror up and collectively we're laughing and making fun of you, oh no. Now all of a sudden they don't know what to do, right? Because see, before they were the bad guys. Trump was the funny man. Trump was the one that was making fun of all the woke liberals. And now all of a sudden, with just a few tweets and a new voice behind Gavin Newsom, it's almost like they've stolen the swagger that Trump has used for the last decade, right? The bullhorn that he's used from the bully pulpit, he can no longer use because Gavin Newsom, who's a much more intelligent, attractive, and sensible individual, utilizing the voice of Camille Zapata, who's way craftier, way more intelligent, and way more creative than anybody that's working on Trump's team right now. It's like, you all are not going to win this battle. And when I tell you, his shit is popping off right now. It is popping off. And in between him roasting them, he's also getting out important information, right? Because any one of those little tactics that they try to use, like I want to say that there was an accident that happened in Florida. 3 people got killed by a truck driver. I don't know all the specifics of the situation, but apparently he got his CDL and he was from California. He was an undocumented immigrant. So of course they try to blow that up. Oh man, see all that crazy stuff that's happening over there in California, undocumented immigrants. And as a result, 3 people lost their lives because of this CDL that was issued in California. Well, turns out the state does not issue CDLs. That's a federal thing, right? So it's like you're able to call out the bullshit that the right is using, calling it out, and then counterpunching. It's such a brilliant tactic, and it's funny because when you read the tweets, you cannot help but to read it in Trump's voice, right? They're using the same level of bravado, same broken English, same, anytime that he's talking about one of the conservative commentators, he uses the little jokes, ridiculing like little nicknames that they come up with. And some people might feel it's mean spirited. I cannot begin to share. I can't share enough how much it gives me life. Because see, like I was telling my wife, one thing that's clear is, see, I think what has been frustrating for many people on the left is, yes, we are sensible. Yes, we do care about rights and humanity and, justice. But ain't no bitches over on this side, right? And I think that that's what I have not liked in the last couple of years is the right gets painted as these tough guys, these pseudo tough guys that can take a joke, and everybody on the left is snowflakes and you guys are woke. And I'm just like, okay, I don't know when exactly things got shifted to whereas the left were the stuffy school teachers, the nuns, and then the people on the right was the ones that like to party and have a good time and can take jokes. But it was like, no, that's an illusion because you guys are still very much conservative. You guys are still very much those assholes. You guys just wanted to be able to use the R word and the N word and be able to make jokes without feeling like you're going to get canceled. Like that's all that was. You guys are still very much lame, to be clear. You know what I mean? So I like this move because while some people think that it's just him being mean-spirited with tweets and the whole nine, I'm like, nah, this is actually deeper than that. This is so much deeper than that because what you're doing is you're taking their little cool card away from them, right? And you're exposing them for what they are because now they're all crying. Now they're all talking about what's fair and what's appropriate. Yeah. Thank you, Gavin Newsom. Thank you for your entire team for snatching off the mask. This almost feels like in Scooby-Doo. Remember at the end of Scooby-Doo when they would put them, they would finally have them handcuffed and they would be like, yeah, and now we get to figure out who it is. And they would snatch off the mask and then you got to see who was really the bad guy the entire time. That's what I feel like this is right now. Like, thank you for snatching off the mask so that we can really reveal them for who they are. And when Trump can no longer bully, because every time that he's throwing a jab, Newsom and his team is punching him and counterpunching him and like bodying him up. Yeah, you will start to notice a tide is going to shift because I think what's going to happen is Gavin Newsom and his team is going to encourage other Democrats to not only one, see that this is working, but two, they're going to start to pick up momentum, right? Because social equity is important. It's very important. That's how Trump got to his position because socially people revered him. And then when he started making the jokes and he seemed like the tough guy, he was who everybody wanted to align with. But what happens when you make the big bad wolf look like the coward that he actually is? Then everybody that's aligned with him has one or two choices. You can either sink on that ship with him and look lame with him, or look like a loser right along with him and be the subject of ridicule as well, be the subject of mockery as well, or you all are going to start to slowly inch your way back, right? All of a sudden, your voice is going to dampen a little bit because you're going to know that heat that Trump is getting, you're going to see, man, if they bodying Trump like that, I know they'll body me like that. And you clearly don't want to go toe-to-toe with Gavin Newsom and his team right now. So I'm excited about just them utilizing this voice. I'm excited about what looks like them mounting a strong defense and what is also appearing to be a bit of an offense, right? Like this feels good. It feels good. And it just feels like finally, we can take some sort of a breath. And y'all, this is far from over. It just feels good to know that people are starting to use their voices, in an effective manner. There is more that I want to talk about. I'm going to save it for next week, just to give you a mild insight. One of the things that I do want us to start being more mindful of, you know what? Matter of fact, without even going into the fullness of this message, I'll just say this much. As much as I do appreciate what Gavin Newsom is doing, it's not to downplay the efforts and the work of the countless other individuals that are putting in the work and that are fighting and doing whatever it is that they can, to hold the line, right, and to move progress forward. One of the things that I have been saying a bit online that I think, we're going to have to get under wraps is this need to cannibalize our own, right? This need to start talking about Gavin Newsom, and every time his name comes up, you got to mention all the other candidates that you like more. And oh man, he threw trans people under the bus, or yeah, well, what about with the homeless people? And it's like, I shared recently with someone that I don't even know why y'all are thinking about 2028 right now. Like, if you are thinking about presidential politics and we haven't even made it to the midterms right now, you're not on the wrong page. You're not even in the right book or the right subject, right? Like, literally, we are fighting for the future of this nation. Those of y'all that are so caught up because you're so afraid that it looks like Gavin Newsom is getting steam. And anytime anybody even talks about presidential politics, it's like, y'all, there may not be free and fair elections in 2026, and you're worried about who's going to be the appropriate candidate in 2028. I need y'all to lock in, right? Ride the wave. If this is a wave, ride the wave, because that is what we are attempting to do, is disrupt fascism, right? We are trying to steal the wind from their sails. And, it's one of them things where it's like, listen, you don't have to agree with every single element and aspect of who he is and every position that he holds. Like, when did we get to this space? I was just talking about that with Krishan a moment ago, right? Where it's like everything becomes so polarized nowadays, where it's like if a person doesn't agree with 100% of who you are, then they become your mortal enemy. And I get it. There are some people that hold some really ridiculous views, and you got to say to yourself, yeah, I have to disassociate myself with you. But when I see all of this ridiculous fighting that happens on the left, that's fucking ridiculous. It's ridiculous, right? That we are having these conversations constantly where we are attempting to cannibalize one another. And it's like, listen, I'm not saying we got to be We Are the World, but like, what we need to do is learn how to work together. Because again, this ain't about who's going to be the candidate to carry us beyond 2028. It's like, no, stay focused. Stay here in the present. It's almost like that scene in Fight Club when that dude kept trying to dream and go away to this other realm, and Brad Pitt's character was slapping him like, no, focus on the pain. Stay right here in the present, because that's the only place that you can be effective. You are not going to be effective worrying about 2028. Not when we are fighting daily to preserve our way of life. Stay locked in, man. Stay locked in, dead ass. But as always, you all, man, it has been a pleasure. Like I said, pretty soon I'm not gonna have light, so I gotta cut this short. You know what I'm saying? But man, it's always a joy. Always enjoy. Being able to build, and for those of you all that tapped in, I appreciate you. And yeah, man, till the next time.